In this Avius tutorial, I'm going to talk about metatextures. This isn't really important to the gaming aspect. I just wanted to include this now that I've covered some core gaming stuff before I transition into a whole section of videos specifically on fiefdoms and the information on those for fiefdom owners. I would like to talk about metatextures. Now, metatextures are something that's really just an added visual aspect. Again, I've talked about Conquest and how if you use Conquest, you see the world as everybody else sees it here on the server. In addition, they've got really cool sound effects. It has its own music pack that's very epic and fits the theme of the medieval survival server. It also has its own sound effects, so as you walk around spawn, you might hear something like talking people, crickets when you're in the graveyard, like the jungle, the sounds of jungle animals when you're in the spawn building. Some really cool effects that it had to the environment, but it gets even better with metatextures. Now, metatextures can be a little bit of a confusing subject for some people, but for instance, I'll use the example of wool. Every block in Minecraft has a block ID number. Some blocks, like wool, are all the same number. They're all one thing. They're all a wool block, except for their different colors. They have different textures. They have a different sub-ID. So while a block might be something like 60, it could be 60.2, 60.3, 60.4, and those can be different in itself, a completely different looking block compared to whatever it is. So wool is all the same ID, but each wool color is a different decimal point. So to illustrate this idea of metatextures, the maker of Conquest, what he has done is use these metatextures to give something like a wood plank multiple different textures. Now, down in the description, I've linked to a page where it'll show on Conquest. These people need to get out of my face sometimes. Link me a link on Conquest, or a page put up by the Conquest owner, and it'll have all of the different metatextures in the game. You'll notice that some are white and some are red. The white ones are special because any player can craft those. What we have done, Zerthik and I have created crafting recipes for each of these, and I'll show you one of them as an example here in a moment. And then the red ones can only be used by Imperialists and by fiefdom owners. They get to use this magic stick. A normal Minecraft stick has a special purpose outside of just being able to be crafted. It can be used as a special metatexture wand. So I'm actually going to start with the red textures. So for instance, here we have a bookshelf, and I've placed a pressure plate on top of it. Now, a pressure plate is a red number on the metatexture sheet, meaning it can't be crafted. It can only be, the metatexture of it can only be changed with a stick. Now, if I right click with the stick, it changes the metatextures, and you can see I've changed it to 70.2, and it's a really nice looking checkerboard or chessboard. Now, if I left click it, I can sort through the other way, or right click it, it goes forward, left click it, it goes back the other way. So you can cycle through blocks. Certain blocks, for instance, like oak wood planks, you can see I can also change. But if I was going to a normal player mode, if I can change over real quick, and I tried to use the stick on something like this tree, it'll tell me I can't do it because I'm not going to be allowed to change this wood to a completely different type of wood. So you can see I can use the stick on this because this is a red number, but then the ones that are white, you can't use a stick on and you have to craft. We've created crafting recipes for all of the ones in white, and I'll show you one or two of them here as a cool example. So oak wood planks, one of the cool blocks here on the game is oak wood planks. Now, oak wood planks have a whole bunch of different metatextures, and they have some of the coolest aside from the pressure plates. Oak wood planks, you see that crafting recipe, it's a U. It's like a cauldron, but out of oak wood planks. It creates a barrel. Now, if you are in MC Patcher, you will actually see the metatexture item right here. If you're in Optifine, you'll just see it as a barrel or as a oak wood plank texture, but all of them will have the name barrel. So you at least have the name, but I recommend using MC Patcher if you just want to focus specifically on metatextures and you don't need all the effects of Optifine. So if I go ahead and place this, you'll see that it's a little barrel of apples. So if you are on default texture pack or you are not using Optifine or MC Patcher, you will see this block as a typical oak plank. These two things will look exactly the same. If you use Conquest with Optifine or MC Patcher, you will see it as a nice barrel of apples. So for instance, I'll show you a room that has a lot of metatextures in it. The all these blocks here are actually snow blocks. They're Metatextures I've changed with the stick. So again, this building will look probably pretty ugly to you because it'll just be a bunch of snow blocks. And in addition, if you go down here into my basement, you'll see that it'll look to you like just a bunch of oak wood planks everywhere, but instead there's actually logs and barrels, a little paperboard over here, a bunch of crates, a bunch of basically storage items, as this is the depot for my fiefdom. You can see this is another one that's actually craftable. It's a nice little fancy little table here. You can change some of these pots. You can do a whole bunch of really detailed stuff with Metatextures and really make some quite unique builds. So I really hope you look into doing that, especially if you're somebody who really likes to build and make things look neat, making a really cool plot on your town. I think that covers it for Metatextures. Remember, check out the link below to see all the different types of Metatextures. It's kind of hard to see from the small images, but try and figure out the crafting recipes on your own. I promise we made them simple and self-explanatory, so you should be able to figure them out really easily if you mess around or are familiar with some of the other textures, or other crafting recipes here on Avius. Thank you guys for watching. There may be another couple parts here, but we'll soon be jumping into the fiefdom section now that we're focusing away and covering all the information for the individual player. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.